shores of Lake Elysia, Sir Cedric's name was synonymous with courage. He lived a simple and humble life for a man of his station. His wife, Lady Evelyn, was a woman of beauty beyond compare. Her raven black hair and kind, bright eyes bewitched all who met her. The love that she and the knight shared was known far and wide. Every day, Sir Cedric would rise and take his post by the gates, while Lady Evelyn sewed and fashioned garments for the city's orphans and the poor. Unbeknownst to them, a shadow lurked within the heart of the master of the watch, Lord Byron. Though outwardly noble and respected, there was a secret desire that clouded Lord Byron's intentions. He wished to win the heart and affections of Lady Evelyn and have her as his wife. Often he would send Sir Cedric on a fool's errand and pass the time speaking to Lady Evelyn in solitude, hoping his charm might sway her. But it was to no avail, for the lady's love was as pure as unalloyed gold. One somber evening, as the last light of the sun bled into the horizon, Sir Cedric received an urgent summons to the grand hall of Lord Byron's fortress. It was a towering edifice, laid with ancient stones and twisted statues, whose eyes seemed to follow his every move. Upon entering the hall, he was greeted by the stern countenance of his commander. "Sir Cedric," Lord Byron intoned, his voice grave, echoing off the high stone walls. "The kingdom is besieged by a dire threat. A Dullahan haunts our lands, reaping souls and sowing fear. This spectral harbinger of death rides under the cloak of night. You are our last hope to vanquish the unholy creature and bring peace to our people. Never one to shirk duty, Sir Cedric's spirit soared with pride at the trust placed upon him. With a solemn nod, he pledged to embark on the perilous quest, unaware of the hidden intentions veiled beneath Lord Byron's words and behind the depth of his gaze. And yet, his heart was heavy, for none lived to tell of their victory against a Dullahan. Venturing into the darkened woods where the Dullahan was said to dwell, Sir Cedric faced the daunting task ahead. Through moonlit glades and shadowed valleys, he journeyed, with nothing but the steel of his sword and the light from his torch. A mist, ethereal and clinging, wove around his steps, leading him deeper and deeper. Suddenly, he heard a faint cry from somewhere within the woods, a gentle weeping that grew louder with every step. Finally, he reached the source of the sorrow. It was a young child, no older than 7 summers. He was sat with his arms wrapped about his knees, rocking to and fro as tears streamed down his cheeks. "How do you find yourself at the mercy of this forest? Pray, hurry home," Sir Cedric said kindly, his voice heavy with concern. "I am lost, and it is much too dark to see the path," replied the child, his voice shaking with fear. The knight gave the boy his torch, bright and fiery, and bid him to hasten back to his village, lest the Dullahan find him. Though he did not regret his kindness, Sir Cedric was now well and truly surrounded by the suffocating darkness. As he stilled his breath and kept panic at bay, a dim, otherworldly light appeared in the distance. It danced among the trees, as though beckoning him towards it. With no other lead to follow, he made his way towards the source of the strange glow. He had heard tales of the fae folk that lived in the woods, that they helped or hindered lone travelers at the witching hour. Praying this was not a cruel trick of theirs, he hurried forward. Thinking he'd finally reached the light, it dissolved without a trace. But at his feet lay a small, injured fox. Its hind leg was bent, and it could not move. Taking pity on the poor creature, Sir Cedric tore a piece of cloth from his own tabard, binding and bandaging the fox's leg. Moments after this kind deed, the fox rose and bowed its head, a silent thanks. It pounced into a cluster of bushes and trees, looking back at Sir Cedric. Once again, he felt the sense that he ought to follow. He pushed through the thick, dense shrubbery for what felt like an eternity. Brambles and thorns seemed to melt beneath his touch. Eventually, he stepped out into a dazzling glade. A deep, bright pool shimmered and pulsed with a long-forgotten magic. The hum of power hung in the air. A faceless voice spoke to him, beautiful and terrible, all at once. For the kindness you have shown, the forest returns tenfold. Bask in the spring of the other world, and speak your heart's true desire, the voice chanted. Sir Cedric answered with no hesitation. To be reunited with the Lady Evelyn, and live all my days alongside her. The waters thrummed as if in approval, and glowed with a holy golden light. He filled his water skin with the liquid gold and unsheathed his blade. He plunged it into the spring, infusing the sword with a divine light that could vanquish even the darkest of foes. For days after, Sir Cedric stalked the elusive Dullahan, his determination matched only by the light of his sword, keeping the darkness at bay. Finally, on the night of All Hallows' Eve, he confronted the spectral being in a clearing deep within the woods. The Dullahan, a ghastly figure draped in shadows, emerged from the mist, its very essence chilling the night air. It rode a horse as black as the void, and wielded a scythe that gleamed with a cold light. It laughed, a maniacal cackle that was not of this world. The battle raged, a tempest of steel and shadow, under the uncaring gaze of the stars. Each time the Dullahan's scythe sought him, Sir Cedric countered, his blade a flash of light in the darkness. With a final, resounding blow, he unleashed the full force of his newfound strength, cleaving through the Dullahan's spectral form with a blinding strike. As the creature dissolved into nothingness, the oppressive dusk that held the forest in its thrall evaporated. With a prayer, he began his journey home, eager to see his wife's face by the morrow. Meanwhile, Lady Evelyn had been hounded tirelessly by Lord Byron. She hatched a plot of her own, biding her time until Sir Cedric returned. She agreed to be his wife, but only if she could sew for him a cloak worthy of a lord. Day after day, she would weave together the richest fabrics, and he would watch her work, marveling at her skill. By night, she would unravel a quarter of the threads, praying for her knight's return. As the dawn broke, Sir Cedric rode into Dunwich, as Lord Byron and his courtiers gazed upon him with disbelief. Having done the impossible, he was made the master of the watch, and Lord Byron was ousted. Sir Cedric shared the waters of the magical spring with Lady Evelyn, as they both drank from the waterskin. They lived unusually long lives, blessed by the forest, and never did evil darken their door. In a time when myth and history entwined, within the verdant heart of Ireland, where the mists danced with the ancient spirits, there lay the hill of Tara. It was a place of power, where the Tuatha De Danann, godlike beings of preternatural grace and wisdom, held court. Among them, there stood the Dagda, their chief, and a figure of immense power and contradiction. Clad in robes that shimmered with the hues of the forest, the Dagda was a sight to behold, his presence commanding, yet comforting, like a storm that nourishes the earth it falls upon. Around his waist, he wore a belt that held a cauldron, known across the lands as the Cauldron of Plenty. No matter how many warriors sat down to feast from it, it never ran empty. A symbol of endless sustenance and generosity that was the very essence of the Dagda's being. In one hand, he wielded a mighty club, an instrument of destruction and creation. For one end, held the power to take a life, and the other to restore it, embodying the cycle of life and death, a cycle as natural and essential as the turning of the seasons. Yet, of all the treasures that the Dagda possessed, none was as precious or as powerful as his harp, Uaithne, also known as the four-angled music. Crafted from the oldest oak, its wood resonated not just with the sound, but with the very soul of nature. Intricate carvings adorned its frame, each line and curve telling tales of the earth's ancient wisdom and the stars' eternal dance. This harp was no ordinary instrument. It was an extension of the Dagda's will, a conduit for his immense powers. With Uaithne in his hands, he could command the seasons, bringing forth spring's vitality, summer's warmth, autumn's bounty, and winter's rest. But the harp's powers were not limited to the realms of nature alone. In times of war, when the hearts of men were tested, the Dagda would play his harp, and the very fabric of reality would bend to the sound of its music. The melodies woven by Uaithnia had the power to stir the souls of the Tuatha De Danann warriors, filling them with unparalleled joy and courage, driving out fear and doubt, and instilling in them
Roger
that no enemy could withstand. And when the battle was
breathing,
won,
breathing,
the weary warriors
breathing,
returned.
breathing,
The Dagda's harp would soothe their
breathing.
spirits,
To
lifting
the
the
beat
weight
now.
of grief for fallen comrades from their shoulders,
Roger,
and replacing it with the lightness of glory and the peace of valor acknowledged. Thus, the harp of the Dagda was not merely an object of beauty or a musical instrument. It was a key that unlocked the deepest emotions and the most profound truths. A treasure beyond compare in a world where magic and mystery were as real as the land underfoot. As the shadow of conflict with the formidable Fomorians loomed, the harp of the Dagda became a source of hope and strength. Before the clash of the Second Battle of Moytura, it was said, "Let us fight, not just for victory, but for the laughter and tears that make us whole," the Dagda would declare, his voice echoing like thunder. His fingers would dance across the strings of Uaithnia, weaving melodies that banished fear, replacing it with a fierce yearning for combat. But under the cover of night, clandestine schemes took form. As dawn's first light crept over the horizon, casting long shadows across the rugged landscape of ancient Ireland, a deep sense of foreboding hung in the air. The Fomorians, a race of beings as formidable as they were fearsome, with their dark visages and hearts filled with envy and malice, plotted in the shadows. Their eyes, as cold as the depth
We drew
of the sea
communion.
from whence they came, were fixed upon the Tuatha De Danann and the source of their resilience and spirit, the harp of the Dagda. The Fomorians
Hey, kitty.
understood all too well
I gotta speak kitty here. Let me pet him. Oh boy. He's so
it was the
squishy.
harp that turned the tide of battle, that soothed the weary, that mourned the dead, and celebrated life. In their dark hearts, they harbored a desire not just to defeat the Tuatha De Danann, but to break their spirit, to extinct.
The holy healer, Raphael. Communion. Raphael's oracle reminds you of the great Islamic tradition of the Hajj, an annual pilgrimage to Mecca where pilgrims celebrate a communion with their earthly brothers and sisters in face of the divine. The objective is twofold: rite of collective petition and praise of the divine. Therefore, observe where communion is not apparent in your life. Know that the source is within you, ever present and all wise, wishing you to reveal the joy of your life in your heart, which possesses true insight. Observe where the communion is not apparent in your life. Know that the source is within you, ever present and all wise, wishing you to reveal the joy of your life in your heart, which possesses true insight. Roll the information, roll a gather information. Add your joy bonus. Perception check. How happy are you?